Two-time WWE Hall of Famer and 16-time World Champion, the Nature Boy Ric Flair is victorious in his final match as he heads off into retirement. Maybe. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestle News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into, and we have to talk about Ric Flair's last match, the spectacle that was Ric Flair's last match last night in Nashville, Tennessee, live on pay-per-view, Fight TV. We'll get into what happened. We will get into the match itself. We will get into all of it. We'll have things covered. We've also got an update on Ric Flair's actual health, his backstage after the match, because he said, I can't remember half the match. It looked like it. The least I can say is that coming out of it now, knowing that Flair is okay, and he is okay, is that I would recommend to go and watch it because it, at the very least, is a spectacle. But it was wild. It was wild, and not even in the sense of like watching it live. Your hope is just get through it. Please get through it. Hope nothing bad happens. Thankfully, nothing bad did happen. But if you're looking for a classic, you will not see it. But I would recommend to go watch it because it's a spectacle, and that's what it is. Nevertheless, Ric Flair rode off into the sunset with a victory in his final wrestling match Sunday evening in Nashville, Tennessee. Now, the match ended with the 73-year-old Ric Flair applying his signature figure 4 leg lock on Jeff Jarrett as referee David Miller counted to 3. The previous referee had been knocked down, which again was just part of this spectacle, part of this craziness. It was legendary WWE referee Mike Chioda who was the previous referee. But as I mentioned, Flair locks on the figure 4 leg lock. Jeff Jarrett has got his shoulders to the mat. Referee David Miller counts to 3, giving Flair and his son-in-law Andrade El Idolo a victory over Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal. Now, prior to the finish, this was the reason why Jarrett was knocked out, Flair's other son-in-law, Conrad Thompson, who was the promoter of the event. I know it was a Jim Crockett Promotions event, but it was Conrad Thompson who was funding it, and he was the one that was promoting the event. It was part of StarCast weekend. Of course, StarCast is Conrad Thompson's convention. StarCast 5, the 5th one he's done. This time it was in Nashville as part of SummerSlam weekend. And it was Conrad who threw the pair of brass knuckles to Andrade, who of course is his brother-in-law, who proceeded to use the foreign object to strike Jarrett. After the match, confetti fell from the air as Flair celebrated with Andrade, Charlotte Flair, and the rest of his family. Now, it must be said, again, when I say that Flair used the brass knuckles, I'm using that term unbelievably loosely because, first of all, Conrad Thompson threw the brass knuckles into the ring and Andrade catches him. He tries to put them in Flair's hand, who at that point looked unconscious. And it wasn't a case of selling. I don't even know if he might have actually been unconscious. I don't know. But he puts him in his hand, and then he has to put him in Flair's other hand, and Flair kind of punches Jarrett, and he goes down, and then he locks in the figure 4, and he gets the victory. As I mentioned, confetti then fell. Tony Schiavone, who was doing commentary with David Crockett for the match, he came to ringside and interviewed a bloody mess that was Ric Flair. Flair got colour because, of course, it's Ric Flair. Despite being on blood thinners, I don't think he took one that day, but he got colour, which is the second time he's got colour in this feud. Of course, he got colour when they after the press conference as well. Several wrestling legends were ringside. We'll talk about which names were ringside in a second. But Flair addressed the crowd with an emotional promo. Flair would end his speech by saying he's going to celebrate with Kid Rock. The show went off the air with the image that you can see right there, with Flair hoisting his big gold NWA World Heavyweight Championship bout up in the air. As I mentioned, there were several legends, wrestling legends at ringside, a real who's who of wrestling legends there. The likes of The Undertaker, Michelle McCool, Bret Hart, Santina Marella, Mick Foley, Al Snow, Jerry Lawler, and Diamond Dallas Page were shown on the Fight TV broadcast. According to PW Insider, though, there were actually several more legends at the event, including the likes of senior WWE producer and WWE Hall of Famer Michael P.S. Hayes. You had Shane Helms there, Mike Lombardi, Mojo Rawley, Jimmy Valiant, Mickey James, Dennis Condrey, the Nasty Boys, Rikishi, Miro, CJ Perry, Lana, Magnum TA, Rey and Dominic Mysterio were all in attendance for this. this spectacle. Now, when it comes to Flair's health, because that's the key thing, going into this, the general expectation was this isn't going to be a classic match by any stretch of the imagination. It's going to be a spectacle. It certainly was a spectacle. My expectation and hope for this was just for Flair to come out alive. And I don't mean that in the sense of, oh, what are they going to do? I mean, the guy is 73 years of age with numerous health issues over the course of the last near decade. He has a pacemaker. He's on blood thinners. He's got vertigo, an inner ear problem. I just thought, just get through the match. And to be fair, some of the biggest pops of the match was Flair taking a bump because legitimately that could kill him. One was a suplex from Jay Lethal and people went crazy because they thought, oh my God. Nevertheless, Ric Flair is reportedly, quote, doing great, despite getting bloodied and taking several bumps in his final match on Sunday evening. According to a report by PW Insider, 2 doctors were waiting for the 73-year-old the second he returned to the locker room after his match. A person who spoke to the Nature Boy after the medical evaluation provided a positive update, noting that Flair was perfectly fine. The report added that Flair was, quote, obviously spent after the bout and was saying he was, quote, starving and wanted to go out and eat. During his farewell speech, Flair told Tony Schiavone at ringside he was going to party with Kid Rock at the Musicians Bar in Nashville, Tennessee. Of course, as I mentioned, the fans, myself included here, were understandably very concerned for Flair's health after watching him take several bumps, especially towards the closing stages of the match. Flair went through this match in slower than slow motion, and I'm not going to criticize him for that. He's 73 years of age. I would criticize saying he shouldn't be in the ring, he shouldn't be wrestling. Anyone in their 70s shouldn't be in the ring, let alone Ric Flair with his health issues that he's had over the near past decade. But towards the end of the match, he was practically comatose. I mean, he was the finish, he was just laying there. He really was. And the punches and the chops, again, were in beyond slow motion, and Flair, he locked up, I think at the beginning of the match, he locked up with Jay Lethal, and he looked like he was blown up immediately. And again, I'm not criticizing him for that, because again, he's 73 years of age, and he hasn't wrestled since, what was it, 2012, I think, or 2011, when he last wrestled. It was Sting in Impact Wrestling. He hasn't wrestled for over a decade, and on top of that, he's in his 70s. Of course he should be blown up, but that's what the match looked like. As I mentioned, the fans were ultimately concerned for his health. Furthermore, Flair appeared to be gasping for air midway through the bout. As I mentioned, he was unbelievably blown up, and once he got color, he was just, he was all over the place. And one could notice that Andrade, El Idolo, Jeff Jarrett, and Jay Lethal tried to buy him time on several occasions so that he could catch his breath. Again, it was very clear to see. Flair got busted open. Well, I say busted open. He bladed after Karen Jarrett handed a high heel to her husband, who proceeded to strike Flair with a foreign object. It was the same angle that they did, was the same spot they did in the angle when they built up this match. Jarrett then slammed Flair's head into the barricade, which led to Megan Flair, who is, or Megan Flair as they say it, confronting Karen, who of course Megan Flair is Ric Flair's eldest daughter. During this sequence, Lethal continued to beat down Flair, causing him to start bleeding from the forehead, because again, the way they did the camera work from this, it must be said as well, he got hit in the head with the high heel, the stiletto, and he wasn't bleeding. They cut to all of this craziness happening in the crowd with Megan and Karen, cuts back, he's bleeding. So that was what happened there. As I mentioned, though, the match eventually ended with Flair applying his signature figure 4 leg lock on Jeff Jarrett as referee David Miller counted to 3. Prior to the finish, Andrade pulled Flair out of harm's way as Jarrett accidentally hit his tag team partner Lethal with a guitar shot. This was followed by Conrad Thompson throwing a pair of brass knuckles to Andrade, who then gave them to Flair, who proceeded to strike Jarrett. So that was the match. As I mentioned, would I recommend to go and watch it? You know what? I would, because it was a spectacle. That's what it was, and ultimately that's what they sold it on. And the entrances, when they were doing the entrances, they had Jay Lethal come out, got some heat. Jeff Jarrett, he had a longer entrance than Roman Reigns this past weekend. He came out, his entrance, they had to loop his theme song. He got played so long. And Jeff Jarrett, I'll give him credit, he got heat, brother. He was nearly starting a riot at several points in the crowd. He was getting into it. He was shoving Conrad Thompson. He was shoving the Flairs. He grabbed a drink and threw it in a guy's face. So I was like, you know what? Fair play to Jeff Jarrett. And he looked great physically. Looked fantastic, I thought. And when Andrade came out, got a good pop. And when Flair came out, I thought it was going to be a long, however long the match lasted when he came out, because he had the big gold underneath his robe. And he comes out, and clearly the belt was too big for him at this point, so it kept sort of nearly falling down. Constantly, it kept nearly falling down. So he had to take off the belt, which he struggled with. And I thought, if he's struggling with that, let alone the match. And then he came down to the ring, and the crowd was into it. I think you could tell, and he did speak about this, in fairness, Flair, prior to the match, that he was, you know, he was nervous, and he had some real self-confidence issues, and he just hoped his confidence would come, and maybe that does come from not being in the ring for over a decade and competing in your 70s, but that's ultimately what you signed up for. My thing I'm happy with is that Flair is alive, and that Flair, as reports would indicate, is fine. I hope he gets checked out a million different times when it comes to his pacemaker, that's working, and all that kind of stuff. It was a spectacle. I didn't have any desire to see Ric Flair wrestle coming into the event or when the event was announced. Coming out of it, I have even less of a desire to see Ric Flair wrestle, or anyone in their 70s wrestle. So make no mistake, legends out there, people like Hulk Hogan, don't get any ideas. I'm not interested. And I think I speak for most fans like that. Nevertheless, though, I'd recommend watching it because it was a spectacle. And that is what that is. Nevertheless, guys, let me know your thoughts on Ric Flair's last match. If you watched the event, your thoughts on it, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Be sure to like and subscribe to Wrestle News 365, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.